You won't believe the chaos that unfolded in one of the most rule-obsessed neighborhoods in America when an HOA Karen decided the laws of nature and the HOA simply didn't apply to her. The neighborhood was the kind of place where everything looked picture-perfect, each lawn trimmed to regulation height, each mailbox painted the approved beige, and every car parked exactly where the HOA guidelines allowed. But amid this sterile perfection lived Karen, a woman who had spent years enforcing rules on others, tattling on neighbors for leaving their trash cans out too long, writing complaint letters when kids laughed too loudly by the community pool, and even reporting one man for planting roses instead of the permitted azaleas. Everyone knew her, everyone disliked her, but nobody dared stand up to her because Karen thrived on confrontation. Yet behind her immaculate white picket fence, she was hiding something that would shock the entire community. A massive bald eagle, perched in her backyard like some kind of medieval guardian. Karen insisted the eagle was her emotional support pet, claiming it helped her cope with stress caused by living around incompetent neighbors. The truth, though, was that she loved flaunting power, and nothing screamed power more than a creature with talons sharp enough to rip apart a small dog. At first, only a few people noticed. Karen was crafty. She only let the eagle out in the early mornings or late evenings when fewer eyes were around. But eagles aren't exactly quiet pets. Their piercing cries echoed through the suburban streets. And one evening, little Timmy from down the block ran home crying after he saw a monster bird staring at him with glowing golden eyes from Karen's fence. His parents brushed it off until one afternoon they found their toy poodle trembling in the yard with scratches across its back that looked suspiciously like talon marks. Whispers spread. "Did you hear Karen has some kind of hawk?" "No. It's bigger than that. My husband swears he saw an eagle swooping near her deck." The HOA board members, who usually bent to Karen's loud complaints, decided to investigate quietly. But Karen was smarter than them. She kept the eagle caged whenever strangers came by, and even threatened legal action if anyone entered her property without permission. She even mocked her neighbors, saying, "You all complain about my bird, but your kids are louder than jet engines. Maybe the HOA should fine you for noise pollution instead." Her arrogance only fueled suspicion. Things escalated one Saturday afternoon when the Johnsons were hosting a barbecue. The smell of burgers wafted through the air, and laughter filled the yard until a shadow passed overhead. People looked up in horror as Karen's eagle swooped down and snatched a piece of steak right off the grill before circling back to her yard. Guests screamed, children cried, and Mr. Johnson shouted, "That's it! Enough is enough!" Phones came out, videos were recorded, and the once-rumored illegal pet was now undeniable proof on half the neighborhood's cameras. By Monday, the HOA board had convened an emergency meeting, but dealing with Karen was never easy. She barged into the meeting hall uninvited, the eagle sitting proudly on her gloved arm, glaring at everyone like a medieval queen flaunting her knight. "This is my support animal," she announced dramatically. "The Americans with Disabilities Act protects me. None of you can do a thing about it." She smirked, convinced her loud voice and pseudo-legal jargon would shut everyone down as usual. But this time, the board president calmly replied, "Karen, bald eagles are federally protected wildlife. It is illegal to keep one as a pet without authorization, and your neighbors have filed multiple complaints. We've already contacted the county sheriff and animal control." For the first time, Karen's confident mask slipped. She stammered something about harassment and personal rights, but the damage was done. Videos of the eagle stealing, steak, and terrorizing kids had already been shared on Facebook groups, racking up thousands of views with captions like, "Crazy HOA lady thinks she's a falconer," and "Karen and her killer pet." Strangers were commenting, calling her dangerous, irresponsible, and even suggesting jail time. The neighborhood buzzed with anticipation. Would Karen finally face consequences, or would she scream her way out of it again? Days later, the sheriff's Deputies arrived with animal control officers. The entire cul-de-sac gathered to watch. Kids sat cross-legged on the curb like it was a parade, while adults whispered eagerly. Karen burst out of her front door, eagle screeching on her arm, yelling at the officers that this was a free country, and the HOA had no power over her household. The sheriff, unfazed, read out the violation: possession of a federally protected bird without a license, endangerment of neighbors, and violation of HOA rules. Karen's face turned beet red as she screamed, "You can't arrest me! I am the law here! Everyone else is the problem, not me!" But as the eagle flapped its massive wings, one officer skillfully threw a hood over the bird's head, calming it instantly. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Without her feathered weapon, Karen suddenly seemed small, her shrill voice less intimidating. Deputies moved in as she flailed and shrieked, "This is injustice! You'll all regret this! I'll sue every single one of you!" Her words dissolved into hysterical screeches as she was handcuffed and led to the patrol car. The neighborhood erupted into cheers. For the first time in years, they felt free from Karen's tyranny. Phones captured every second, and by nightfall, clips of HOA Karen arrested for eagle ownership were trending online. Yet as the patrol car disappeared down the street, a lingering question haunted the neighbors. Was this truly the end of Karen's reign, or just the beginning of an even bigger battle? What if the loudest voice in the room finally went silent? But not because she gave up. Because the law itself forced her into silence. That was the thought on everyone's mind the morning after Karen's dramatic arrest, when neighbors woke up to find their HOA Facebook page flooded with videos of her screaming as deputies dragged her away while animal control secured the eagle. The once feared enforcer of petty neighborhood rules was now reduced to a viral spectacle, mocked across the internet as Eagle Karen and HOA Queen Gone Wild. But behind the laughter lingered curiosity. What would actually happen to her? Would she come back more furious than ever, or would the system finally strip her of the power she had abused for years? The county jail was not the kind of place Karen ever thought she would see from the inside. She ranted at the deputies, demanded to speak to the sheriff, and shouted that she would have the entire department fired. But her words carried no weight. Her mugshot, eyes blazing with fury, was plastered across news sites by evening. Local reporters jumped on the story of the suburban tyrant who thought she could domesticate America's national bird. Federal agents soon became involved since bald eagles are protected under the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. Suddenly, Karen wasn't just facing HOA fines. She was staring down potential federal charges. As court dates were set, the neighborhood transformed into something it had never been before: peaceful. Children rode bikes without being glared at, dogs barked without fear of complaint letters, and the Johnsons finally held another barbecue where no shadow swooped down to steal their steaks. It was as if the air itself had been lifted of a weight. At the first hearing, Karen shuffled into the courtroom in an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit, her once carefully groomed hair frizzy and unkempt. She tried to regain her old confidence, shouting at the judge that her rights had been violated, that the HOA had conspired against her, and that the eagle was her service animal. The courtroom erupted in muffled laughter. The judge, stone-faced, reminded her that under federal law, no one could own an eagle without permits, and certainly not keep one in a suburban backyard. Karen's tirade only dug her hole deeper. Reporters scribbled notes furiously as the judge declared that the case would proceed with multiple charges. Videos of her courtroom meltdown hit the internet within hours, amplifying her downfall. Neighbors who had once cowered now shared memes of her, photoshopped with eagle wings or wearing a crown labeled Queen of Hypocrisy. But Karen was not one to accept defeat quietly. From jail, she began writing furious letters to the HOA board, threatening to sue them for emotional damages, vowing revenge once she was released. The board, however, no longer feared her. They filed every letter straight into the shredder. Weeks turned into months, and as the trial approached, anticipation reached a fever pitch. Local news covered it daily, and strangers even drove into the neighborhood just to take pictures of the infamous Eagle House. Finally, the trial began, and it was nothing short of a circus. Karen represented herself, convinced she could outwit lawyers with her loud voice and endless arguments. She shouted about freedom, about conspiracies, about fake laws invented by jealous neighbors. The prosecution calmly presented video evidence: the eagle stealing food, terrorizing children, scratching pets. They even brought in wildlife experts to testify how dangerous and irresponsible it was to keep such a bird as a pet. Karen's defense crumbled under the weight of facts. By the time closing arguments ended, the jury barely needed an hour to return with a verdict: guilty on all counts. Sentencing day arrived with the neighborhood gathered outside the courthouse, holding signs that read, "Justice for the community and no more Karen." The judge delivered the blow. Heavy,